All right, time for a quick project review here. So, today we are talking about the Goode Condos, the Goode in the Distillery District by Greywood. So, let's get our bearings first. The first thing here is we're on Parliament, so 33 Parliament, fronting on Parliament. This is the Goode here, 32 stories, 540 units, a lot of small suites, which is nice to see for investors. Obviously, in the Distillery District, one of the favorite pockets, one of the favorite neighborhoods in Toronto, especially for resale condos. This here is 31 Parliament by Lanterra, a very successful project, nearly sold out. And you can see the Goode has a large podium that extends to the back here. This here is a future site, 33 or 31R Parliament by Citizen and I want to say Dream. Hope it's Dream. If it's not Dream, I'm sorry to whatever developer is partnered on that. So this is the site here. One of the nice things about the podium is you're actually going to get some lake views on those southeast exposure. I'm sure a lot of people are ignoring that because if you don't look at the massing or the architectural plans, you wouldn't notice that. But regardless, the north facade of the building is actually almost entirely unobstructed. If you haven't seen this model before, gray is an existing building, pink is a planned or approved building, and blue is a building that is already under construction but not complete. So you can see here, the north facade of the building is really nice. So you'll find corner 2 beds and 3 bedrooms here that get really unobstructed views. And in terms of the location, so I'm not going to go through the building too much, like the amenities and that kind of stuff. You can look through the brochure at your own leisure. If you're on my email list, you get the price list, the incentives, the floor plans, the brochure, all that good stuff. And if you're not on my email list, so you got to get on my email list. You can do that in the link in the description. So this is, I want to talk about the area, the investment thesis for the area. Now, Distillery District is already a very successful community, tons of retail, tons of restaurants, people love it. But what's coming to the East Harbour front, I think, is what excites me most about not just the Goode, but this area in general, because there's just a ton of redevelopment plans. So here you have Tridell's Bayside community, and behind that you have Greenland's Lakeside, and then you have obviously Sidewalk Labs, or it's not called Sidewalk Labs now because Google has stepped out of the picture, but this is a massing of what may eventually be at the waterfront Toronto site. So this is what it might look like. City's looking for a new partner on this, so we'll see what it ends up being. Get the quayside slip here. So whatever is going to be there is obviously going to be very interesting. Lots of retail components, so it'll be nice. But let's talk about some of the more concrete stuff. So next to that, you have 3C, and 3C is Citizen and God, I keep forgetting my developers. Well, it's by Citizen and somebody. I think it's Castle Point. But regardless, that's a relatively early phase thing. We don't have a lot of great renders on it yet. This is what it might look like. This is a bird's eye of the massing. So lots of condo retail component there. And in terms of what's already underway, you have the Lower Dawnlands redevelopment here, which is obviously just a very short walking distance from the Distillery District. And if you're not familiar, the Lower Dawnlands is a 300-acre, $1.25 billion redevelopment plan. For perspective, 300 acres is a large plot of land. So High Park is, and my model doesn't have High Park. So use your imagination. I'm sure you've been to High Park. High Park's 400 acres. This is 300 acres. So it's an absolutely massive redevelopment with a focus on parkland and recreation. But also, as you can see from the massing file here, your fair amount of residential and retail restaurant component as well. So it'll be a really nice area to hang out. Think about like a much larger version of Humber Bay with low and mid-rise instead of high-rise, with even more parkland, but on the east side of the city and closer to downtown. Obviously, Humber Bay is a very successful condo community. I think the east waterfront will be even better, fast forward a few decades type of thing. If you haven't seen the renderings for the Lower Dawnlands redevelopment, truly is something. So it's a massive site, like I said, coming in 3 different phases. And like I said, focus on parkland and recreation and that kind of thing. I won't focus too much. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check this stuff out. One of the more interesting developments on the east side that I'm really want to focus in on here is East Harbor. So East Harbor is a 60-acre site recently purchased by Cadillac Fairview 2 or 3 years back, all office and retail. So you're looking at 60 acres of office space, enough office square footage for 50,000 workers, and a ton of retail, like hundreds of thousands of square feet of retail space along the ground levels. So we've got some renderings of that here too. So this is a massing rendering of what it'll look like just on the other side of the DVP. And it's also a transit hub. So it'll add a ton of value to the east side of the city. You can kind of see the renderings here, lots of shopping, lots of boutique. And of course, the focus is on transit and office space in general. So those are two of the major reasons I see the East Harbor front becoming sort of the place to be in a couple of decades, Lower Don and East Harbor. But specific to Distillery, you also are very close to the future Ontario line. So if you're not familiar, the Ontario line expansion program has a number of stops, and one of them is Corktown. And the Corktown stop is right here at Berkeley and King. 250 front is where the station entrance will be. So in terms of walking distance from the Goode, you're looking at about a 5-6 minute walk to get up to the subway there, which is obviously huge for the neighborhood, relatively disconnected at this point. This is going to really shake things up for the East End. Well, the Ontario line is going to shake things up really wherever it goes. It's going to add a lot of value. But specific to this particular development, you're a 5-minute walk away, which is fantastic. And you're also close to East Harbor, which is right over here, and right across the street from, the Portland's redevelopment. So all of those things are great for, potential long-term growth of the neighborhood. Now getting down to the building specifically, I won't focus too much on the minutiae, like, amenities and whatnot. They've got great amenities, 20,000 square feet. You have an outdoor pool, gym, all that kind of good stuff, right? I'm not going to focus on that. You can read through the brochure at your own leisure. Just going to focus on the incentives here. So you're looking at a really nice deposit structure. So 5% in 30 days, 5% in 125 days, 5% in 2023, and 5% in 2025. The other nice thing about that is a long spread, right? So it's not completing until 2025. You've got a long time in the market. One thing I do say a lot is invest in a developer before a development. In the case of Greywood, I have nothing but good things to say. I've worked extensively with Greywood. They have a site right now that they're nearing completion on in the Junction area called Scout at Old Weston and St. Clair. Great site, amazing prices. We did a lot of our clients bought into that particular development, and I have nothing but great things to say about working with Greywood. Really reputable developer, and they build what they say they're going to build. So I have no sort of like that. I don't see risk in this development really. Development levies are capped, $12,000 for 1-bedrooms and $16,000 for larger. And then, of course, you have your free assignment thrown in. Pricing wise, so you can get the 263 square foot studio in the 400s. Now, of course, that is a very small unit. The more reasonably sized studios are in the 5s. And then, of course, you can get 1-bedrooms in the 700s or in the podium for the 600s. 2-bedrooms will start in the 8 and 900s. Not going to focus, again, too much on the minute details. Just going to show this is a very small floor plan. Obviously, it can work for students. It can work for single people who work very long hours and don't spend a lot of time at home. But let's look at some of the more reasonable layouts. So one of my favorite layouts is the 486 square foot 1-bedroom. This is a corner unit. Really good use of space. And then one of the units that I like for investors is the price per square foot drops precipitously when you get into the larger units. You can also get some larger 2-bedrooms and 3-bedrooms that face north. And as you can see, the north facade of the building is unobstructed. So that's really nice. You can get those unobstructed views to the north because obviously if you're facing south or to the east, you're relatively obstructed, right? Like I said, won't focus too much on the building specifics. You can go through all that via the email I'll send over. In terms of value in the neighborhood, there are a couple of sort of hallmark buildings in the Distillery district currently. You've got the Gooderham, you've got Pure Spirit and Clear Spirit, 70 Distillery and 33 Mill. So you can see here the average selling price over the past 365 days, about 1,000 a foot, 1,000 a foot, and 1,000 a foot. And when you look at the rental rates, what do we have here? 1 bed and den, no parking, $2,350 a month. 1 bed and den with parking, $2,500 a month. And when you look at sold specifically, obviously the smaller stuff will sell at a higher value per square foot. So here's a 1 bed selling for $575 without parking, which works out to almost $1,200 a foot. And then the other thing worth noting is, if you're in 70 Distillery with a clear sort of downtown skyline view, you'll see units go well north of $1,300 a square foot. Really depends on how large the unit is and what the exposure is in these buildings. But that gives you a reasonable idea of where resale prices are at. So in terms of the investment thesis in Toronto condos in general, I'm going to do a longer video this week, a full market update. Just haven't had the time yet, but I found this graph on Twitter. It's a new graph to me, so I wanted to share it. The blue line is our population growth via immigration in millions. This is Canada-wide. And the red graph, or the red bar, is how many homes we built in that particular decade. So the part that jumps out to me, right, is that in the last decade, we immigrated 800,000 people more than the previous decade. However, we built 300,000 fewer homes during that same time period, which is really interesting to me, and it really helps to articulate and explain what I've been saying in all my other market update videos about why appreciation is averaging 8% a year over the last decade, when if you look at the 45-year sort of time horizon, it's about 6% a year in Toronto. And the reason really comes down to we're building less homes, we're immigrating more people, and that trend seems to pretty much stay the same. You have some years with more completions than others, but over the long period of time, we're seeing less and less completions on a yearly basis. So if I hop over to this graph here, if you know me, I like to get a little more granular with the data. So I decided to pull the 2018 and 2019 housing completion data as well as the immigration data for the GTA specifically, because this chart is obviously Canada-wide. When you look at the GTA specifically, we know that the GTA gets 35% of the immigration of Canada. We get the lion's share. So the supply crisis is even worse here than it is Canada-wide.